There are those that just want to be left alone, and those that just won't leave them alone. Which one are you? The Ernest Hancock Show.
I want to break free. I want to break free.
Yeah, I want to break free. How do I do that? You know, am I gonna vote myself free? Maybe not. You know, how do you get free? I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty free. I mean, that doesn't mean there's not guys with, clipboards and shiny badges and tickets and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, I feel relatively pretty free. I mean, in between the ears, I'm okay. I'm free. What I got to do to avoid all the crap. What I got to prepare for, how I got to, stock up and do and make and have a place to whatever. You raise your children that way, because a lot of it is between the ears. You just got to, get in the right mindset. And then the other stuff just kind of, I'm not going to go up and doink the man. That's why, doing this courtside thing, man, I'm like, hey, I'm not there just to go get arrested. What point are you going to make, So I want to make sure you want to demonstrate support for officers that finally said, look, man, I'm not doing this. I'm all good with that. So we're going to be making the trip. Now, there's a mindset that is infecting the culture here in America and around the world, and I think it's there's a lot of commonalities, certainly as Generation Next is communicating with each other. Tomorrow we have Charles Goyette on. We're going to talk about a lot of things in his new book and so on. Hopefully we'll get Ryan Mott on, that was at the Iowa straw poll, and get some comments from him. Then we leave tomorrow night, and then we go to Los Angeles, where we're going to be spending a couple of days with Butler and Jane Schaefer. Now, they have two daughters that are also writers. One works for, I think, the Asian version of the Wall Street Journal. And another one's, he's a law professor. The boy has some skills. Our next edition is going to be Raising Generation Next. Now, here's a guy that was part of the Freedom College back in the late 50s and or knew all these guys. And as time is going, he's like one of the last guys standing, if not the last guy alive that, knew these people back in the day. So we're going to do 2 hours on 2 hours on Wednesday and 2 hours on Thursday from his home. We'll go ahead and do the show live with our mobile Conrex Access thing through the network. And what'll happen is we'll go ahead and videotape that, and then we'll have bonus footage afterwards. I want to get the whole, however long it takes. I mean, if we go, 10 hours, whatever, I mean, that's just going to be a multi-part series because I want to get this on record from somebody that's known since the 50s, how all these people overlap with each other. And if you've been reading a lot of his stuff on Lou Rockwell and so on in his books, then you kind of got a beat on a lot. But a lot of this stuff hasn't come up. There are figures throughout history that have been keeping the torch alive. Who influenced Ron Paul? Who are those guys? Where did he get his information from? Why did he come around? There's always a genesis of these ideas. I mean, a lot of things come, to just people on their own. That's kind of a lot what happened to me. I just kept asking the right question and pulling thread, and all of a sudden you just get it all unraveled for you. But there are other things that are going on. And one of the things I wanted to point out, Army suicides set record in July. The U.S. Army suffered a record 32 suicides in July, the most since they began releasing monthly figures in 2009. The high number of deaths represent a setback for the Army, which has put a heavy focus on reducing suicides in recent years. The number includes 22 active duty soldiers and 10 reservists. The previous record was 31 from June 2010. That's a side effect of something. I mean, it's just, and of course they don't care about they just care about press. I mean, they just lay waste to them. They're all blown up, disfigured, whatever, but bad press, you got people doing suicides. And I remember this being a big deal in the Soviet Union. And there was a story in the book, Gorky Park. I read this, probably when I was in high school. It was in the late 70s, 78, 79 or something, or early 80s I read it. I can't remember, but it was around that time. And Gorky Park was about this detective in the Moscow Police Department. And he wanted to be a policeman because as a young child, they had a suicide in his apartment building, but when it came out in the news, oh yeah, he was murdered by somebody in a drunken vodka rage, de la, whatever. Who cares? Why would they say he was murdered? Everybody knew he committed suicide. The reason is, in the Soviet Union, when it's all peaches and cream, nobody commits suicide. It's happy utopian communism. The same mentality in the army. Nobody commits suicide. The brethren's, everything's good. So they want to stop this, get it down, not emphasize this, whatever, because it belies something else that's wrong. All right, let's throw that out there. You're going to be hearing more about this. Then you have foreclosure gate, mortgage settlement collapsing. This is what's behind, I think, a lot of what's going on in the financials and Bank of America and all the problems that we're having in the stock market. Geithner may try, but he cannot compel attorneys general in both parties to settle for pennies on the dollar and relinquish all of their liability for consumer protection violations and fraud upon state courts. He cannot influence investors who see a giant meal ticket in the form of forcing big banks to repurchase faulty mortgage-backed securities. If there was a magic bullet in this debacle, it would already have been fired. Now that sounds interesting. We know that the banks have been furiously lobbying in Washington, D.C. to cast off the liability for their former actions. The problem? These are state law issues, and Washington, D.C. has no jurisdiction. Even though it would like to do so, it can they'd like to, so it can accept their bribes or campaign contributions to make it all go away. They've trotted out Catherine Wild, the president of the Partnership for New York City, to attack Eric Schneiderman for his intervention in the Bank of America settlement with investors over mortgage-backed securities. Blah, 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 blah. Bottom line is this. What's happening is that in a lot of these fraud cases where people are actually challenging the bank, show me the note, all this other stuff, they're in state court. And they're trying to, because you got 50 states, there's one place where they didn't get this, overriding we rule you from on top Washington, D.C. thing, has been in property rights, in the exchange of property from one person to another, and who has the right to foreclose, and who's the person on, show me the note kind of thing. So as this is starting to unwind, and you're going through the courts, and they got different various opinions in different courts, and going to different U.S. district, and on and on and on and on, they're screwed. They don't know what the heck to do. The Bank of America is on the hook for gazillions of dollars, and now with the fraud demonstrating what they were doing, this robo-signing, all this other stuff, that you have people going, also our pension fund that bought all these mortgage-backed securities, and you said that it was blah, blah, blah in this contract, and then it turned out to be a lie. Guess what? You got to buy them back. And they're like, but we don't want to. Yeah? So who's going to make them? Who's going to not make them? Who's going to protect them? You see my point? So this is the state attorney general versus the Washington, D.C. And I know what's going to happen. It's what's happening here in Arizona. The government comes in with a big, giant bailout carrot, kind of your legislature needs to pass and sign and do and whatever, and then we'll give you some money. Be a little bit of money compared to all the money that they're going to say. So this is you want to know how depression's happening? You want to know why you got zombie banks for, in economies like Japan for a decade? This is why. Because they don't do what Ron Paul said. Just let it go. Liquidate all the malinvestment, and these guys get nailed. So what? Welcome to the rule of law. No, can't have it. All right, let's go over a couple things before we run out of time. Massachusetts police arrest another man on wiretapping charges. A Massachusetts man is facing 5 years in prison after secretly recording an argument between himself and police officers who had pulled him over for a traffic infraction. They are coming down on this. I'll tell you what else has been going on. Long Beach police trained to detain photographers not producing photos of aesthetic value. Now, whatever the heck that means. The police chief acknowledged that his officers are trained to detain photographers who are taking pictures with no apparent aesthetic value. What? It's the kind of pictures you're taking now? Yeah, you can take pictures as long as it's not of us. Whatever. This is amazing. They make it up as they go along. San Francisco, what did they do? The BART police, which is like their little train system, shut down cell towers to block demonstration. A decision by San Francisco Bay Area transit officials to cut off cell phone service at some of its stations to thwart a planned protest drew angry response Saturday from one transit board member who said she was shocked that officials acted as this type of censor. They are shutting down. And so what did the hacktivists do? Oh, you got some activists there. They started going after San Francisco subway website. You know, the battle is on. So what did I do? Today I called, my friend Al Ramirez over at the Phoenix Police Department. I said, we need to get a beat on this thing. There's going to be a lot of activists that come in through Phoenix as they're going to court site. And I just need to know what's Phoenix Police's policy on shutting down communications. You eliminate the First Amendment, you only leave the Second. That's why it's next. Be careful. Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. Readers of freedomsphoenix.com are constantly provided the information that detail the real news between the lines of propaganda about government policies and the true relationship we all have with coercive governments. Learn the true condition of our economy, innovations and technological breakthroughs in energy, health, computer science, and space travel. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media, the media that is so last century. Corporate media has evolved into nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but we now have a fantastic alternative. FreedomsPhoenix.com provides constant news updates on the issues that affect our lives in the most important ways. Our liberty and our property are under constant attack, and FreedomsPhoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda while encouraging the participation of our readers. Join us at FreedomsPhoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. FreedomsPhoenix.com, where the revolution between the ears has already matured.